The Woman from the Stars. This story, from the treasure chest of my grandmother and great-grandmother, was a rare but always welcome tale that my father loved a lot as a child. His mother sometimes pointed out that while this story was part of the tales told among the nomad tribes since times long past, it probably originated in ancient Egypt, in a time before the pyramids. Being a student of religious history, I was always puzzled by this story and that particular piece of information. The closest I came when looking at the symbols and persons in this story was the ancient proto-goddess Nuut, sometimes translated as Nui, which sounds like French for night. Egyptian mythology is very special in many aspects. One of these aspects is the gender of gods. While in most cultures the earth is a goddess and the sky has a male attribution, it is the other way round in Egypt. It is thought that this is due to the fact that while in other regions of the world the life-giving water comes as rain from the sky and fertilizes the earth, like a womb, in Egypt, life came never from the sky, but from the river Nile. And while the sun god was there too, the most powerful one, the cool shade of the night and the starry sky above was like a starry arch, soothing the heat and brimming with the promise of life. Be all that as it may, let us travel back now, far, far back into the most ancient of times. It was at a time when the sky was still hanging low over the earth, and a time when invisible beings befriended us humans. In the Egyptian desert, long before the first pyramids were built, between two huge and dark rocky cliffs was, and is perhaps to this day, a small but beautiful oasis. The water was crystal clear, surrounded by lush green grass and in a shadow of green palm trees which gave honey-sweet dates throughout the year. In this little piece of paradise lived a nomad all by himself in his tent. His parents had passed away a long time ago. He didn't have a wife nor children, not even neighbors. One could say he lived in permanent confinement. But he owned a beautiful herd of camels, proud animals who gave him delicious milk. Dates and milk, what else does one need? Says a proverb. One day something strange happened. The camel mares stopped giving milk. Worried, the man stayed the whole day with them, from morning to evening, and saw that they grazed and drank as always, calm and happy, not a worry in the world. But the next day their udders were empty. So he decided to stay also throughout the night with his camels. He pulled over his worn-out burnous, put a cap over his head, and hid in the midst of his camel herd. At midnight, when the moon enlightened the mountain heights, a ray of light suddenly came down from the darkness of the sky and fell right onto his oasis. Thousands and thousands of little stars were contained in that light. And it changed until the light formed 7 swings, and on every swing a beautiful woman sat. The nomad saw how the woman sang merrily and sprang down from the swings. And full of wonder, he saw how they were milking his camel mares. Ah, he said to himself, they are the milk thieves. So he left his hiding and tried to catch the women from the stars. But they were fast and immediately floated back up towards the sky. In their hurry, they spilled the precious milk. In that night, so it said, the Milky Way was created. In the end, the nomad managed to catch one of the women. He used the rope and bound her hands and made sure she wouldn't jump on one of the starry swings. Once the starlight had receded and they were alone under the moonlit sky, he realized how beautiful the woman was. Having spent most of his life alone and far from civilization, he looked at her in open astonishment with his wide open mouth. Then he felt something he never had felt before. It was like a sting in his heart. His stomach gave off a feeble feeling, and he realized for the first time how lonely he had been all these years. Then he began to speak with a trembling and sad voice. "Please stay. I am very lonely here. If you stay, I will be the happiest man on earth. If you want to leave, of course I will let you go, but I won't survive it." The woman from the stars took a good hard look at this man. It was as if she was reading his soul. Then she started to smile. He was, without knowing it, quite a handsome young man after all. "Yes, I will stay with you," she proclaimed. What happiness! Shortly after, a marriage was celebrated. As witnesses, besides God, only the beautiful herd of camels, rehashing grass and looking with wide opened eyes at the newlywed couple. But the woman from the stars had one condition. In the night when the nomad catched her, she had a little basket with her. Her condition was that the man never ever took a glance into the basket. "If you so much as open the lid of my basket, I will leave you forever." The nomad gave his word, and they stayed together. He spent his days with his camel herd. She had a little garden in the oasis and started to plant vegetables and herbs. And so they lived for many years, happy and content. But time went by and by. Oh yes, time, that mighty enemy. Time which makes us forget so many vows. One day, on a late and lazy afternoon, as the nomad was feeling unwell and spent the time alone inside the tent, and the woman from the stars was in the garden, his gaze fell on that basket sitting on a chest in a dark corner of the tent. Suddenly, a huge curiosity befell him. With quiet little steps, he approached the basket and cautiously opened the lid in order to peek into its mysterious darkness. Then he started to laugh. He closed the lid again and went back to his seat. Later, when his wife returned from the garden, she stopped in her pace at the entrance of the tent. She looked at the basket, then at her husband, tears running down her cheeks. "Why did you do this? Why did you look into my basket? Why couldn't you keep your promise? Now I have to go and leave you forever." The nomad answered, "Yes, I have looked into your basket. So what? Why this secretive business? The basket is totally empty." "I have to leave you now. Not only because you broke your promise and looked into my basket, but also because you didn't see anything in it." She turned her back towards him, walked up the hill. Even though it was still early evening, a star swing came down from the sky and carried her into the rising moon. Since that day, the woman from the stars has never been seen again on earth. This is an excerpt from the book The Storyteller of Algiers, Stories from the Maghreb and Elsewhere, told and published by Nasser Charles Aceval in 2018. English audio version by Hakim Aceval, published with authorization and explicit encouragement of the author illustrations and title image by Bendix Bauer. Currently, the book is only available in German. If you are an editor or interested in publishing an English version of the book, please contact the author's son, Hakim Aceval, under hakim@aceval.net. To order an autographed and dedicated copy of the book, please contact the author directly. You will find his email address under www.aceval.net or via his Facebook page.